Okay, Josh. So I'm gonna break this up into two videos for you. The first one, I'm gonna talk strictly about guitars and amplifiers, and then the second one, I'm just gonna focus on the pedals. So let me turn these guys on for you. So first off, let's talk about guitars real quick. Depending on what kind of guitar you have, strictly electronically speaking, you're gonna have either a single coil pickup or what's known as a humbucker. A humbucker is basically this, where it's two single coils and they're wound together. There's different ways that pickups can be wounded. So you can have like one being polarized a certain way and the other one being polarized the opposite way, and you get different types of tones out of that. So the reason why I love this guitar is because this is a really, really hot pickup. So humbuckers like this, you're gonna have a really, really high output. And what's nice about them is you can roll on the volume. Kind of hear that overgain. The more that you roll up on the volume on especially on like a semi-hollow like this, you get a more overdriven tone without needing any sort of pedals or anything like that. And like I said, I'll talk about the amp side of it in a second. So if I were to go get a Telecaster with a single coil in it, that's where you get that real twangy kind of note, because it's a thin body, solid guitar, and it's got those kind of danky, tangy single coils. It's basically just one pickup, just like that. So that's the difference between single coils and humbuckers. You can have guitars that will have multiple volumes and tones so that you can control each individual pickup. You can switch in between them and mix pickups. So you can have your bridge and your neck. You can have just the bridge or just the neck. Like some Stratocasters, you'll see they'll have 1, 2, and then 3. Or humbuckers on the bridge. Like, it gets crazy. Yeah, like there's no limit to any of the possibilities. So when you're picking an electric guitar, it just depends on what kind of sound you want. If you want more bluesy, then you definitely want some jazz humbuckers, and maybe semi-hollow, kind of like this. This is more for jazz blues. This is kind of a weird guitar where it's set up for punk rock. If you want more country, I would say go with a Strat or a Telecaster. So let's talk about, let's go from the guitars to the amps here. So this is making a crazy noise because I have a lot of voltage coming through here. These are typical practice amps. This is the most expensive one I have. This one was $300, and that's because this is literally a miniature head and a cabinet. So what a head is basically like the control. This is where all the electronics are that control what comes out of your speaker. And the cab is basically almost like how a subwoofer is on a car, where the head unit controls what goes into the sub and how much power it gets and what kind of EQ goes through it. The cab is basically just like the sub, where it's literally just the speaker itself. So if I wanted to, I could plug any of these in to this cabinet. I could go get any head that I wanted, and I can mix and match, and I can get a bunch of different sounds that way. These are typically the practice amps that you're gonna find. 15G. This came with the Telecaster that I bought, and it was about $200. This Marshall right here you can get for $70, $80. This one was $300, and that was on sale. Typically it's about $350. I think I got it for $320. Typically it's on sale for $350. So one thing you're going to notice about all of these amps, the more expensive you go, the more features you're going to get, with the exception of the 15G, because this by far has the most features, but in my opinion probably sounds the least good. So you have all these different types of EQ settings here. Ooh, that's dusty. Ew. But anyways, you have all different kinds of EQ settings. You can control literally your bass, your mids, your trebs, and then you have 2 different channels. So you have what's called a clean and a dirty channel. So a clean is there's going to be no overdrive. It's just going to simply be the guitar into the amplifier and what that sounds like. When you switch to dirty, it's going to give you an overdriven sound. So you're going to get those really, really heavy tones out of it. And that's basically this. That's the basics for any sort of amplifier you can get. So it all just kind of depends on what guitar you're looking at, what kind of sound you want. The Marshall I recommend for more like warm tones. This has very, very good clean tones. If you want some really like lead tones, I would go with something like the Vox. You get some really 60s rock kind of vibes from this guy. And the Fender is like all out metal. Like if you just want metal, like this is like crazy awesome for clean tones, but if you want like metal, that's the way to go. So I'm gonna cut the video off here, and then I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna give you a demo of all these pedals and what they do. And I'll also in that video talk about how I have all this set up, because I have one guitar going into 3 different amplifiers, and I mix all of these amplifiers to get the sound that I want.